Welcome in. We are live. We are on the correct side of the screen, but
Yes.
as you notice, I still have a hotel room behind me, so I'm in Indy for one more night. But that's okay. I got a chance to go see a second straight night of Chicago Bears and Indianapolis Colts practice. What have you been up to? You had to go to work. Like
Yeah, I had to work. I had to work the real job today. So that's
Yeah.
I say a real job. It's I had to go downtown today. I work in the office a couple days a week, so I was downtown Chicago. So that's always exciting because I have to get up extra early. I got to take the train, So, but it's okay. And then I got back, and of course, I didn't realize I was going to be on dinner duty, so I was running around. I've been running around, man. I literally just sat down here like 5 minutes ago. I got things fired up. I'm going to share this the show here to the Twitter sphere and to the Facebook land, and then we can do our podcast.
Yeah. Go ahead and do that. Nice night. We had a storm roll through Indianapolis at like, I don't know, 3:00 or something like that. And I was kind of like, okay, like what's going to happen here? But it was just this one cell, and it was really windy behind it. Sometimes right behind a storm, you get a lot of wind. I was like, oh man, this will be interesting. But it really calmed down. It was a nice night. So, clouds kind of came in and out throughout the night, but no more rain. But yeah, it was interesting going back. So it's Thursday night, right? I'm literally asking. It has been a very long week for me.
It is Thursday. Right? It is okay. Thursday, correct.
So I think what happened was the Colts put all their tickets up for sale, and then they announced, they're free, but like they put them out for offering. And then they announced that these two dates would be joint practice. Because when I found out, I immediately jumped over to the Colts site, and they had those tickets available, right? So I pulled those two tickets for myself for the 2 nights, and then they were quickly sold out. And so I think what we're seeing is, and most of the Colts practices were not sold out throughout this camp, as opposed to just to like set the record, because the Bears camp sells out within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get tickets, right? You have to block time to get it done. And so I think what happened was like they were, probably half sold ish. And then they opened for last night. And then it opened up, and Bears fans just went after it, snatched them up. And so you had that like partisan crowd, which was maybe like 60-40. Tonight it's Thursday, so it's closer to the weekend. So I think more people were willing to go do it on a Thursday night, maybe to take Friday off or whatever. And it was much more Colts, because I think more of those tickets were already sold before they opened it up, or before they announced it was for the Bears joint practice. So it was more Colts partisan tonight. And I was sitting on the side with the Colts offense, which I think lent itself to being a little bit more blue and white. So
but it's the Colts fans though. So it's like they're generally, from your experience, it's not like going to like a rival, because of the AFC. No one really cares. So everyone's really cordial with each other there.
I would say for the most part, there was a little bit of weirdness because Bears fans were next to me, and they were they were saving spots for their kids, and they had their kids and like grandkid, and so they were like taking care of stroller and stuff like that. And these Colts fans came up, and they're like, "Hey, we're trying to save these 3 for our family," and they're like, "Well, they're not here right now, are they?" And I was like, "What? Come on, dude!"
It's a practice.
It was. I mean, yes, it's the back row of where we're at, but there are tons of spots open.
Yeah.
And like it was very early still, and then the guys were still fine. They still fit where they were in the back row, and so that was a little weird. And then at one point, some guy kind of hollered something at me, and I was like, "Do you guys expect to be good this year? Like, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "Do you think you're going to be good?" And I go, "Well, I think that the mediocre to above average, right? I think that's
better than 3 wins from last year.
Yeah, but I think we're kind of thinking they're going to be a little above average, but we're also in the NFC, by the way." Yeah. And the guy said, "Well, us too," and I was like, "Okay, like, why are you yelling at me?"
I don't get the whole trash talk thing. I don't understand it. It's like, I'm not out there playing. You want to talk? Okay, good job. You're go team. It's
Yeah.
I'm in my own world as a fan. I don't care what Packer fans have to say. I really don't care what Colts fans have to say. It's like, who cares? It's just we're all just watching a team. And of course, there's this fake Panther rivalry that's trying to creep up, and I could care less. So I don't know. Do you want to get this podcast started here?
Yeah, we should.
All right.
We just keep burning this gold here. We don't want to do that.
I know, right? Right.
All right. You got everything shared out?
I am good. Everything is shared as
Okay.
far as I know.
Okay. Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Berckes, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the last public practice for the Chicago Bears was tonight. It was in Indianapolis. I was there. You were getting everything set up. How has your day been?
Busy day. Like I was saying in the pre-show, I work downtown today, so it's always a little busier, a little longer day for me. When I work from home, I got a little more time to kind of get things taken care of. So hectic, but not as hectic as you. I mean, you're down there doing the real job, plus you're doing the football job. So you got everything going on your plate today.
Yeah, this is one of those where it's like, I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of thing, right? Like it's just been not a lot of sleep this week. But I've had a lot of energy, right? Like, so going from a conference to doing the football practices the last 2 nights, it was fun. The feel was a little different. I was mentioning in the pregame before we hit record on the podcast, but a little bit more partisan to the Colts tonight. But I thought it was a really nice experience going back. Night 2 was a little cooler. It was probably about 10 degrees cooler. We just had a rainstorm sweep through, in the mid-afternoon. There's some wind behind that, and then it just sort of like was nice. It was kind of intermittently cloudy, and the sun poked its head out, and then it would be cloudy again. So it's kind of annoying with like sunglasses and stuff. But overall, like a really nice night, and I thought that the experience was repeated in terms of the things that I really liked, which was there was a guy on the PA, and he was telling you what was going to happen, and it was very specific, right? Like we're going to do kickoffs, right? Like at one point he said, okay, Colts offense is here. Bears offense. Let's put this another way. Richardson is going to be on this field, and Fields is going to be on this field. And
that's all fans care about, right there.
Yeah, you're right. Like kind of real boiled it down. But it was nice because hey, we're going into a long session here. This is going to be 11 on 11. We're going to see the Colts first team offense start off. They're going to get X number of plays. And then they're going to, hand it over to the second team. They're going to do X number of plays. And then the Bears are going to get to go. And it was just this like refreshing, like explanation of what's happening at practice and what to expect and what the next segments were. Like there was like,
I think you froze. That is a good point though. Hopefully we get you back here soon. But just the fan experience, these training camps, the coaches probably could care less about the fan part of it.
Right.
But from the franchise perspective, that's their product on the field. Fans are invited to Hallis Hall. They're invited there to the Colts Park. So, it's a fan experience. And I think as the years go on, I think some of these franchises, for example, the Bears, now they're there, they hear this PA stuff going on. Maybe they'll incorporate that next year at Hallis Hall because it is a fan experience. You are doing stuff to cater to the young kids. There's the stuff with the Bears Care. There's the stuff with the Kids Castle, all that. So whatever they called it over there as you're walking in, they're trying to get the fans excited for the product on the field and doing that kind of stuff where you're talking on the PA. Maybe even get to the point where they'll say, we're going to start 7-on-7s. We're going to do 1-on-1s over here. The O line versus D line on the far field, stuff like that. I think that would kind of help the fan overall experience.
My back?
You're back. You're back. That's why I kind of stopped because I saw you moving.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I didn't freeze on my screen. So
you are remote. You're like you said, you're in a hotel. You're in Indianapolis. So
right.
This might happen.
Yep.
It's live.
Yep, it is what it is. Yeah. Live television, you just got to roll with the punches here. So I really enjoyed that part of it. And I think overall, it's just a better experience than what we had at Bears camp. And so I just hope that they maybe loosen things up a little bit. Like I said last night, they do have those signs very prominent that say no video recording. Again, I followed that, but I tried to click better picture. Someone gave me a hard time for posting a terrible picture. And part of it is your phone. Like I have it where it captures like motion. And like, I think I like dropped my phone as I was still taking the picture or something, but I'm trying to like get it out. I'm not like looking, I'm not really editing myself. Hopefully I did a little better tonight on the pictures, because
The pics were nice.
I do think I put up a couple bad ones out last night. It was a fair criticism, but also
That's
one of those criticisms where it's like, I don't really need it right now. But
Well, I think these camp pictures, yes, we want to see the formation, we want to see what's going on. But I don't know, from my perspective, it's all just like, oh, look, Jeff's there. There's what he's looking at. I mean, to me as a fan, that's enough for me. I mean, yeah, I want to see more sometimes, but I'm not going to nitpick you. So, it is what it is. One thing I forgot to ask you yesterday, I want to ask you again today is, so these camp practices are at 6 o'clock Eastern time. So they're more in the evening hours. What's that like? Because I know at Bourbonnais, and then of course at House Hall, they've always been first thing in the morning. The only time the Bears do anything where they do an evening type practice is when they do their family fest. So what's it like having a later practice in the day?
and they even did the Family Fest in the morning this year, I
Oh,
think.
they did this year, correct?
Right. So I really like it, because it's going to be, it wasn't bad yesterday at the start, temperature wise, but it's just going to get cooler as you go on, right? Whereas opposed to when you get to Hallis Hall, it's 10 o'clock, it's humid, right? Like, I mean, most of us are, well, I don't know. You might live anywhere, so I shouldn't say this, but if you've been to the Midwest
Yeah.
in the summer, it's usually very humid in the morning, and then as it heats up, it's sort of hot and humid, and then sometimes you might burn off that humidity and get a drier heat. But like generally, the morning actually isn't that great to work out in, because it's usually really humid. And so at least by the afternoon, you have a chance to burn off some of that humidity. So I like it. Like, I thought it was a lot nicer to take in those practices. And I mean, you don't have to get up early, right? Like, I mean, you could work and then get to the park and take in the practice, as opposed to taking off the whole day, right? It's much more convenient as a fan, I
As a
think,
fan,
that to have those. And I would think as a player, I would think that it would be a little nicer with the weather. Like, I think that would be nice. But as a player, you might want to get that practice in already, then go have lunch, and then maybe do the meetings in the afternoon. I think as a player, I probably want the earlier practices, even if it's a little less comfortable as an athlete. They're professional athletes; they'll be fine.
they'll be fine.
But I think that as a fan, it's much better to have it at night.
So yesterday, there are two fields. We talked about yesterday how they're kind of butted up against each other, the end zone to end zone, end zone to end zone. Yesterday, you were kind of in front of the offense. Today, you wanted to flip it up, so you were in front of the defense. So We'll kind of talk on those a little more specific after the break. But I do want to get into the big news of the day that kind of popped up after the practice. That is, Coach Eberflus mentioned that Justin Fields will not play on Saturday nights against the Colts. How are you feeling about that?
Well, obviously, you want to see Fields play. I did get to see, quite a bit of Justin Fields the last 2 days, and watching him, really play pretty well overall, I would say, and certainly throw a lot of really nice balls to a wide variety of wide receivers. It wasn't just DJ Moore. He was up and down the depth chart, and so I think it's fine if you want to protect your guy. I get it. You don't want to necessarily put him out there, and things were getting pretty chippy. And so I wonder if maybe there's part of it where it's like, you put up the live hitting in a real preseason game. These guys may be willing to sort of take that extra step, and we don't want number one to be put in harm's way. I can kind of get it, but yeah, you want to see your guy play, but I think we want to see him play in real action. So I think it's fine. I don't think he needs the reps. This isn't one of those situations. You know who needs the reps is Anthony Richardson. Yeah. That guy needs all the reps. So we'll see how long he plays on Saturday, because a very erratic performance from him tonight.
That's the Colts' first round rookie. I mean, he's going to struggle. He's a great athlete. He has a real live arm. He was compared a little bit to Fields coming out because of the athleticism, because of the big arm he had. So it'll be fun to watch his career progress. Especially since he's over there in the AFC, it'll be kind of nice to see what he does over there. But yeah, Justin Fields got plenty of work these 2 days of practice against the Colts, and he saw defenses he will not see on Saturday had he played, because preseason games are vanilla. Our colleague Greg Gabriel, he wrote about this earlier in the week. He talked about these joint practice, why they're so important is because the film that happens there, that's not shared with, that's internal. That's the Colts film, and that's the Bears film. The preseason film, that's shared around the league. So they're not going to pick up tendencies off of a preseason game anyway. So that's why teams all run vanilla stuff. So Fields saw more variety of defensive coverages of blitzes and stuff in these 2 days than he'll see at all on Saturday. So I'm fine with him not playing. I am curious to see what happens now in the third preseason game. When a lot of times teams kind of scale things back, which again, there's not a fourth game no longer. The last couple of years, there's only been 3. We're not sure how the Bears are going to handle that. So I would like to see Justin Fields go out there and kind of, go through a couple series, see what happens. But maybe they've decided just to kind of scale them back.
Yeah, I think it is what it is. But I think from what I saw, this Fields is ready to go. Like, I'm not too worried that he needs more reps in the preseason to get himself there.
Year 2 in the scheme. He's had a nice offseason working with his guys. I think he's ready. He still may have some bumps in the road here. He may not come out and be perfect against the Packers, but I think he's ready. Like you said, he's ready. He's as ready as he will be. So we'll see what happens here. Let's move on to Trench Tribute, because that's where we usually like to start. But since the news of Fields was so big, I had to go there. Again, you're watching most of the defense. Who in the trenches that you noticed stood out to you today?
Yeah. Well, I want to say, do we have an update on Cody Whitehair?
I believe they said it wasn't serious. Again, this is Coach Flus's his thing. Nothing serious. They'll let us know if it is.
Because I heard he left practice. I didn't see it after like one-on-one, or one-on-ones or individual drills or whatever. And I just want to make sure that we all take a moment and think, positive thoughts, send positive energy. Maybe we set an edible arrangement, to Cody to make sure that he knows that we're behind him. Anybody wants to dedicate, donate their kneecaps or whatever it is that is bothering him.
It's a hand injury. I believe it's a right hand injury.
Yeah. Anybody wants to donate their right hand in exchange, right? I mean, anything, right? Let's just put out the good energy for Cody, because the backup did not perform very well. We'll leave it at that.
There's a lot of Doug Kramer fans on our message boards and in Twitter. I think he's an Illinois guy. He's also went to high school locally, I believe. So that's part of it.
I think he's got a long way to go if he's going to really make a roster. Just to give a very honest opinion, but I just don't see it right now with where he's at. But so I just wanted to kind of start the Trench Tribute with that. Let's send positive thoughts to Cody's way. I wanted to say most of my thought, again, where I was sitting with the angle, it was much easier to watch the secondary. But our boy Dexter got into it a little bit.
He threw a punch? I thought I saw on Twitter.
Yeah, so he's kind of willing to throw hands, right? It got real chippy. It wasn't just the line. That happened early, and that got separated. And then there was, I believe, Terrell Smith got into it and instigated that. So that was the big ruckus that cleared the benches, and then there was another one that cleared the benches. So that was a lot of chippiness and fighting, but it kind of started with Dexter, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, defensive lineman kind of standing up for himself. I don't know. It just felt like, all right, that's about as good as I could see from where I was at. For me, it was a lot more watching to see if honestly, it felt more like coverage sacks that were happening on Richardson, and then some poorly thrown balls, and then some nice plays by the secondary. But I didn't necessarily see the pocket collapsing or anything, or anybody getting around for a lot of obvious sacks or anything like that. So I don't have a very good Trench Tribute for the defensive line, but I like Dexter being a little, being willing to throw down, which I'm not a fighting guy. I don't want the penalties or anything like that, but I like the passion.
The fire and the passion is there. Sometimes you got to let your inner meatball out and just embrace the fire and the passion, my friend, because sometimes your team needs that. It gets the whole team fired up.
Gets them fired up. Absolutely. So it felt like maybe that sort of initiated these additional brawls, because that was the first one that sort of happened. But I don't know. I kind of liked it.
So you mentioned the Doug Kramer. So with Cody Whitehair out, Lucas Patrick is also injured. He hasn't been practicing much lately. So was Doug Kramer in there at center during the 11-on-11s. Also, Nate Davis is back. He came back yesterday. He was working in a little bit there, but it was Jatari Carter again, playing a lot at right guard. Other than that, it was your usual guys, Tevin Jenkins, Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright. But like we talked about last night, the O-line is starting to build some continuity here. They're starting to get a little comfortable. Nate Davis is slowly working his way back. The Cody Whitehair thing, hopefully it's not long-term. I just double-checked Twitter. There was no update from Coach Flus. He updated some other injury guys. He did not talk about Whitehair. Obviously, it happened today. It was a hand. Depending on the severity, they're probably going to get x-rays, just me speculating. But, maybe he doesn't play either on Saturday because Coach Flus said he'll hold a few guys out. He didn't say the whole number 2 unit will be out there, but I'm guessing if Whitehair is dinged up, he's not playing. And if you're not going to play Cody Whitehair, I'm even more happy they're not going to play Justin Fields.
100%. I was just going to say that. Like, if you're not going to put Whitehair out there and Patrick's unavailable, then I definitely don't want Justin Fields out there.
Exactly. So let's jump into a break here. And then the other side, we'll get in some offense, defense, and I'll also touch on the injury report too. All right, we are back, Jeff. Again, even though I'm on this side of the video screen, still running the board, it's got me discombobulated. So before we get in, like I said, you were in front of the defense. We'll talk about offense a little bit. But before we do get into that, I do want to touch on the injuries. Today, there was no Eddie Jackson. Tyler Scott did not practice today. You talked about yesterday. You didn't see him much. Maybe he got dinged up yesterday. Also not practicing Velus Jones, Tremaine Edmonds, DeMarquise Gates, Lucas Patrick, Jaquan Brisker, Josh Blackwell, Chase Claypool, and Treston Ebner. Velus Jones is missing after having a pretty strong day on offense yesterday. That's not good for him. Hopefully he gets a chance to get out there and play. We talked about it yesterday, how his electricity with the ball in his hands, his speed, his ability to break tackles, they need that if he can work on his fielding the punts and get a little better there. So him missing, bad news for him.
Bad news, and I would assume that they may have given him kick return reps. I'm not sure, but they did kick return today, get punt return yesterday, and I might as well just kind of talk about that.
Yeah, we're here. We're hopping around. That's good.
We're hopping around. So sorry, this is top of my notes here, but Bears return unit actually looked really good. There's three returns. They gashed all 3. Like, they looked really good. Sybil Webster had a good return, but lost the fumble. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Joe Reed, was it Joe Reed took him back to the house?
Number 80. Like, it looked really good. Now, again, you'd have to kind of go back and look at it. There's a little bit of like kind of breaking down on some of the guys, like, we're not going to pop yet, right? But the whistle didn't blow, and it didn't necessarily look like his progress was impeded necessarily. So he may have actually had that as a full take back for 6. And so I thought that the kick return unit looked really good, and I was wondering if we're going to flip it around. It's going to be the same thing, and it's just like, oh, it's just kind of what this drill is, and these guys are going, no, the Bears like shut down. They covered the kicks well. All 3 of the kicks they really covered well, and so that was really kind of cool to see. Like, Bears totally won the kickoff reps. So I was like, hey, that's pretty cool, and that was all right in front of me. That was good news to see that. And then offensive standouts. Other than that, did you pull anything from Twitter that you were particularly?
It sounded like Justin Fields he wasn't, on top of everything. I know that I saw a few interceptions. I saw a few tip balls that were picked off, but I saw he got hot in a couple of the red zone stuff. DJ Moore obviously was down there. I saw one time, I think he had like 3 straight touchdowns, I believe it was. But Sam Householder, who was also there with you today, if you go back and look through his feed, this man must have tweeted out 50 tweets today. So go find where he starts tweeting about practice, and it's in chronological order. I'm telling you, I never seen so many he fired a ton of tweets off. And I retweeted a bunch of them from the WCG account. But if you go find Sam Householder and just kind of read through his stuff, he's got a pretty good snapshot of Justin Fields and what he saw when he was out there.
So we talked about this when we were at camp in House Hall, is that the offense has a real advantage on 7-on-7s. So you should see a pretty good completion percentage on 7-on-7s. And that's sort of what we saw today from Fields, from what I gather. Again, I'm watching the other side of the field, but he was really sharp on the 7-on-7s. Like, I think he was perfect in the session. And then what I was trying to explain to some Colts fans near me when they were kind of asking about this is like, well, the offense has the advantage. And so the fact that what I'm watching, which is Anthony Richardson, and the Bears defense really suffocating on the 7-on-7, like his numbers were bad, like just objectively bad. And I was like, that's like a huge win for the Bears. So
Yeah.
again, the 7-on-7 sessions, it felt like the Bears really just owned both sides of the ball there too. So I think that was really noteworthy in that Justin Fields was really sharp, and what you would hope and expect at a 7-on-7 drill. But the Bears defense on 7-on-7 really won that on the other side of the field.
I saw some positive tweets about backup PJ Walker. Did you notice the backup quarterback slinging it at all today?
Not at all. Nope.
So from what I gathered from Twitter, again, I wasn't there. This is kind of just going through the timeline of Sam, of Lou Medina. There's a few other guys that I kind of followed, Zach Pearson, a few other guys. PJ Walker seemed to have a nice day, bounce back, and I didn't see much about Nathan Peterman, but I did see a few of the Badgent tweets, who is the Bears 4-string UDFA. Again, some fans talk about his live arm, accurate on some stuff, looks the part. It's so maybe the Bears may have found a guy here, like we talked about yesterday, that can kind of stash on the practice squad. And again, these UDFAs, the odds of them panning out at quarterback are slim to none. But you know what? If he becomes a guy that you trust as your QB2 for a year or two, that's a win, because he's an undrafted free agent, very cost controlled. You trust him. He's in your system, and you can spend that money at another position because you believe that the guy you have there at number 2, again, I don't think it'll happen this year, but let's say a couple years down the road, you trust him as your 2. That's a big win for the franchise.
Yeah, I think our friend, our buddy Brad Spielberger mentioned something to the effect of, you develop a guy like that, you save money on a veteran backup quarterback, that money can buy you a guard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like and those are the kind of wins that happen at the GM level that really add up over time, because you're able to allocate your resources in a way that puts that money on the field and allows you to have better players, that positions that you may try to scrimp and save otherwise, right? So if you can develop him into a backup that you feel comfortable with, that's only going to be for the better of this entire roster.
Brian Hoyer, Taylor Heineke. There's guys throughout the NFL that we see that kind of came out of nowhere, and they're like, they're not great. Even the guys that kind of like the 7th round picks, don't expect much. Nick Mullins, you don't expect much out of these guys, but they play competent enough football to where you're not forced to go out and sign a guy like, I'm not saying PJ Walker was a bad signing. I like it.
Chase Daniel,
for example, just someone that's competent. You don't have to spend a ton of money on your backup because you developed your own guy that could be that backup spot. So,
yep, absolutely.
Anyone else stand on offense? Again, if you were over on defense mostly, anyone else you want to kind of mention before we kick over to the defensive side of things?
DJ Moore's really good. Continues to look really good.
Yeah, that's the tweet. That seems like every single day, once practice gets going, someone tweets it out. The Fields to Moore connection is real. It's there all the time. And I saw someone, I forget who it was, they tweeted out today that, they're going to stop saying that because it's so obvious now. It's a given.
Yep.
He's the man. He is the guy. So let's take over to defense. You were out there. You said the secondary was what you kind of caught your eye because the way you were sitting there. No safeties, no Jackson, no Brisker. So it was Thomas and Elijah Hicks were your starters. And I saw Hicks had a pick. Did anything from the safety position stand out to you today?
Hicks definitely had a nice pass breakup in the back of the end zone. Gordon had a pick.
That's right.
It was an awesome rep. I love
Spider-Man.
Yeah, he did the Spider-Man afterwards. Did like kind of a thumbs up or something to the crowd, and then did the Spider-Man to somebody. But like it was it was one of those where I watched the whole rep. I can kind of see it in my mind, and he had the guy the whole time. Like he played it perfectly. He's basically running the route for him. He turns his head at the right time, and he ball skills makes the play. Like it was beautiful. Again, if I could take video, I would love to have had that video and just shared it with you guys. I can see it in my head still, though. It was the highlight of the practice for me, and he had won the rep in the first second. Like you could just tell he was on it, and it was Richardson throwing the ball. I mean, it was the ones. It was one of their top wide receivers, and he was able to just run the route for the guy, flipped his head at the right time, made the play on the ball, and you could tell he was pumped. I mean, turnovers are celebrated, of course, by everybody. on that defense, but he was pumped. You could tell that he knew that it was just a perfect play, and it was awesome. It was a real standout. But overall, the number of times that Richardson had to, fake that he was rolling out after not seeing anything, either in 7-on-7s or in the team drills. When they got to the team and he started running, they'd blow the whistle, like, "Nope, you're sacked." And maybe that's not real. Maybe he could break tackles because he's this really big athletic guy, but that's forced by the secondary. Like, he's not seeing his reads, and it's because that secondary is able to lock guys down. And again, they're doing that, with guys missing practice for one reason or another. Uh, it, the secondary is really interesting. They're really going to be good. I know it's a rookie quarterback that they were going against the last couple of days, but I heard yesterday that the secondary looked pretty good, and today it just really kind of confirmed everything that we saw at camp too, right? Like, there'd be times where the secondary would look really sharp and really give Justin Fields some headaches, and I think that you can count on Jaquan Brisker taking that second-year step. Kyler Gordon is definitely taking that second-year step. And, you've got a really solid veteran presence with Eddie Jackson. We know Jalen Johnson is a really good corner. That's four guys, right? And then you've got Tyree Stevenson, who we think can kind of step in and be that fifth guy. There's a lot of guys that can really play ball here, and I think they showed out the last 2 days.
Well, Tyree Stevenson, he had some. I guess he was chirping again today. Doing a little trash talk. And again, it kind of goes to the position, right? Receivers and corners; those guys chirp. That's kind of what they do. They're out there on an island a lot against each other, so they're always talking back and forth. And if you got a guy like Stevenson, who he played at the U, so he brings that energy to the Bears. If he can back that up, again, we were joking a little about how Dexter kind of brings a passion and fire. If you got a guy that's out there chirping and he's winning his one-on-ones and he's shutting guys down, your defense can feed off that.
Yeah, it looks like these guys are really have a lot of energy and they're playing with each other. They're starting to feed off each other, and they're starting to kind of see what the other person's doing, which, working as that tandem, that team. I think it's really exciting. And then we're not even talking about the linebackers, which we think are going to be really good too, right? So you didn't have, you didn't have the big free agent acquisition because
Tremaine Edmonds was out again.
Edmonds is still hurt.
They keep saying he's fine,
right?
But I think as Bears fans, we've seen this story before,
right?
And it's like we get a little nervous because it seems like every year there's a guy where they keep saying he's fine, then all of a sudden, back surgery,
right.
What's happening? But he is out there. He is engaged. He's out there with his teammates, as are all the injured guys. I saw a tweet today, Jaquan Brisker, while the defense was doing the huddle, he was in the huddle going through his hand signals, doing what he has to do to make sure he stays mentally prepared. And that's, it goes to the makeup of these players. They want to stay engaged. They understand what leading up to week 1 here against the Packers, they're staying ready at all times.
Yeah. Again, I'm really excited because I think we strongly believe that the linebacking core could be a strength.
Yeah.
And then we have seen evidence that the secondary is really making the strides. So now your back 7 looks really exciting. That's great. Now the front 4, maybe it's, we'll see. But the back 7 looks like it could be really competitive, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
So from your vantage point, it was tough to kind of see the line a little bit, but I did see some tweets saying how the Bears are getting some pressure. You talked about the day Richardson had a bit inconsistent, with some of the stuff there. Even in the 7-on-7s, there's no pass rush, but if you go through all your progressions, you have nowhere to go. That's a win. You assume as a coach, okay, my D line would have got home in this situation. If you're back there for 3.5, 4, 5 seconds, that's a sack in the real world. So Richardson has to go through his progressions, and if he finally is able to hit a guy late, those plays aren't happening. And even though Richardson had a chance to go through his progressions, he was still missing guys because of the good coverage.
So really the only success that he had on those 7-on-7s, and in my opinion, and maybe go back, he had this, I don't know, but they were slants, which are unguardable in one-on-ones.
In one-on-ones, yeah.
And even then, he threw behind a guy once, and there was a pass breakup, and he was off target on another one. So even those weren't perfect, and that's why I think I tweeted out, the rest of the session was pretty boring because it was a lot of slants. You can't defend it one-on-one if it's anywhere close to the guy. But a linebacker would potentially be able to make a play. Like,
Yeah.
so you have, if you're playing with the full field, you're not going to get away with that. But on the one-on-ones, it was pretty boring. But when we got to 7-on-7, even, like, he was inaccurate, and he was forcing some balls into places he probably shouldn't have. So is that good secondary play? Is that rookie quarterback play, or a combination of both? I'd like to think it's both.
Which is fine. He's a rookie. Now I want to ask you. So the Colts announced he's their starter week 1. Rookie. A lot of people didn't think he would kind of step in and be able to take that role immediately. The Colts say, hey, you know what? That's our guy. Why waste time? Let's get him out there. Something the Bears didn't do with Justin Fields, a few years ago, obviously, and that really torn a lot of Bears fans. So what? I know it's a Colts thing, but I want to get your take. What's your take on the Colts deciding just to go with the rookie week 1?
Well, I think what's interesting is I was talking to one of the Colts fans at the time, and I was like, "Well, you guys know you're going to be bad, right?" Like that. That was kind of my point to him, and he's like, "No, I think we're going to be okay," And like, you're starting a rookie quarterback from week
Tough,
1
yeah.
who's a project, and so he may have all of the athleticism of the world, but he's not ready to do anything. He's not ready to string together plays, drives, and certainly not starts for you to win a lot of games. And so I don't know that should be your expectation. Like, your expectation is, we're giving this guy all the reps because we want, we don't care what the record is, right? And so if your mentality is, we just want to get this guy out here and let him learn on the job, and we're committed to him for the long haul, and we just want all the reps that we can get, I think that makes sense. But you can't necessarily pull the plug after this year if he's, historically bad. You can't bench him, like, right? Like, you can't start him week 1 and then be like, you know what, he's really not ready, and then put in whoever their backup is. I don't even know.
It's Gardner Minshew, isn't it?
Oh, it
I
is Gardner
believe. Yeah,
Minshew.
yeah.
Yeah. Wish I would have. I didn't see any like crazy outfit, coming out, so it wasn't obvious. But yes, Gardner Minshew's their backup. So to me, if you're going to go ahead and make that decision, he's your guy.
Yeah.
Like, there's no like going back. So if you think that you're gonna, well, if it doesn't really work out, we'll kind of bounce back and say we'll have a give him a back seat. That's not really how it works. Like, you've committed to this guy, you're going to roll with him. So the Colts could come out and they could be really bad this year, to the point where they may be drafting up high again. So if you're in that position, I mean, Ballard might lose his job in that situation, which I know would make our friend Chris Armstrong happy, who hates Chris Ballard. But if they draft up high again and one of those quarterbacks are available, would they charge the Kings ransom to try to trade that pick out, or would they trade in for a guy that's maybe a more polished prospect if they were drafting up that high? I don't know the answer, but I don't mind them going for it. But I don't. They can't play games with it. They have to. He's got to start. If he's healthy, he has to start every game he's healthy.
It's definitely an interesting situation because, if they do commit to the rookie and then they roll with it, and he's just so horrendously bad, and they are in a position to move on because this is a pretty good draft class for quarterbacks, so they may be in a spot to draft one of those guys. And if that's the case, then maybe they move on from Richardson, or maybe they, like you said, he does enough to show him where, yeah, we can kind of, win with him long term. He showed us enough, the athleticism. This is where the league is going. We want a running quarterback. And then they kind of do what the Bears did. Trade their pick up a bunch of draft picks for the next 3 years, maybe get a player back in return, and all of a sudden the Colts are where the Bears are this year with the arrow pointing up. And I know we had some Colts fans on our chat, yesterday, listening to the show. We were in their shoes last year. The Bears sucked last year, but I enjoyed that team. I enjoyed watching them play every week because it was fun, because Justin Fields was doing some stuff here and there. The offense was exciting. They weren't winning games, but I had the most fun watching that 3-win Bears team than any team that I've watched that have been a losing team. So if the Colts keep that perspective and they understand what they have going forward, I think they can have a fun year.
I think that 3-win team that we experienced last year may have been more fun than that first round playoff loss to the Saints year, where it was just such a like, why are we
in the playoffs? Yeah,
this is so silly. It was the first year of the 7th seed, right? And it was like, what? This is so silly. And they scored that walk-off touchdown to like avoid a Was it to avoid a shutout, or was
I
it to
think
avoid?
so.
I mean, it was so sad. And
But
like,
didn't Mitch Trubisky win the MVP that game? The Nickelodeon Most
yeah, the
Valuable Player?
and MVP.
The
Yeah,
MVP, yeah.
yeah,
We'll always have the MVP. So I guess that's about it. We kind of went through what you got. We guess we can close the podcast out. We'll stick around for a little bit here and answer some questions that we got in the chat on the video side of things. But you want to get us out of here?
yeah. We'll be back to review the game at some point, probably this weekend. The game's on Saturday, I believe.
Saturday night, yeah.
And so we will either do another instant game reaction or we'll do the next day. So we'll be back this weekend to talk Bear and Balance with the normal categories. And we're starting to get close, guys. Preseason game number 2. There's only 3 of them. We are close to the season. So stick with us. It's going to be a fun season. And until next time, bear down.
Nice. Yeah, we got some Justin Fields right off the bat, right off the top, letting us know it's Fields. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm really okay with it there. Look at this. Look at this. Good to see you guys back on from is this number one Bears fan here?
Number 1 Bears fan.
Nice. Here we go. Do you guys have concerns? Pulse sign pass rush specialists. No one really to set the edge. Most for defensive ends are not very good at the run. I think the first couple guys they signed, I know DeMarcus Walker, he's more known for being a run guy than he is for being a speed guy off the edge. Rasheem Green is another guy that's not really a speed guy off the edge, a little bit of a run guy. And then, of course, the guys that are returning, Dominique Robinson, he is a speed guy off the edge. So if he's going to be the Bears starter, which it seems like he is, him and Yannick Ngakoue, they're both going to be starting. Neither one of those guys have historically been good against the run. So there's where there may be an issue. But I think DeMarcus Walker may be able to be in the mix quite a bit here early, if not the starter opposite Ngakoue, because I know the Bears like to have that the quick end, and they like to have the more stronger end on the other side. So maybe that's how they'll do it this year. And then have Dominique Robinson kind of be the guy that comes off the bench.
Or Greg Gabriel was telling us there's like a body type for those 2 DNs, the difference, and like kind of going back to the Lovey years with like Phillip Daniels, Alex Brown, right? Like there's like a slight difference between like an Alex Brown and a Adewale Agunlia or something like that, right? So I think you can kind of, if you've been around the Bears for a while, you can kind of think of it that way. I mean, I think we all know that Yannick Ngakoue is not a complete player, but pass rush is really important, and so it's okay that you have one guy like that, and I think he can help Robinson too, right? Like, I mean, he's just Ngakoue's not that old, but he's been on a lot of teams. He's racked up a lot of sacks, so you hope that he's able to kind of impart some wisdom on the younger players. But I don't know, Gibson. Do you think he's going to make the roster? Green, Walker's a decent player, right? I mean, he's a good rotational piece. So, I mean, I'm worried about the defensive line.
Yeah,
they're either, under talented or really young, and you don't know what you're going to get out of them yet. But I'm not. I'm not.
It was so bad last year.
It was so bad,
yeah.
and they're better. They're more professional here. So I don't know. I'm not freaking out like other people are.
Yeah, that kind of leads us to the question we got here. They're asking our thoughts on how many and which DLDN make the 53. I think they may only carry 4 D tackles: Billings, Justin Jones, Dexter, and Pickens. I think they might try and sneak Travis Bell, their rookie 7th rounder, back onto the practice squad. But I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks, if they trust him and then they think he has enough there, because you're going to have a guy that's inactive each week anyway. Maybe Bell's the guy. But we talk about DeMarcus Walker. He can kind of kick in and play defensive tackle in some pass rush situations. So that's something he's done throughout his career. I believe Rasheem Green has also done that at defensive end. So I know Travis Gibson, he's kind of has a bigger body type. He may be able to do it inside as well. So I think they may just keep those 4D tackles. And of course, the big question here is Terrell Lewis. who has flashed a little bit here in training camp, and he flashed again in the first preseason game. Is he going to make the roster at edge, or they're going to try and bring him back in the practice squad?
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, he's certainly shown a little more than Gibson. I know Gibson had that great first
Nice
preseason
game,
game,
yeah.
so we'll see. That's great. Like guys stepping up and trying to compete for those final roster spots. But that's a good situation to be in, where as opposed to last year, where you're like, which of these guys is going to be on the active roster? Because none of them are that good. So like, who are they going to like give some reps to? So here, it's a much better situation where you're like, hey, you might have to cut a guy that could probably stick. There's no dominance, right? Like again, Ngakoue gives you the one. He's just the pass rusher, so at least that's something. But you don't have an all around guy that you're like, this is my anchor here, and everything kind of sets off of that. You don't have a dominant player anywhere along the D line yet, but that's fine. But you can't fix everything in one off season.
Yeah, for sure. Bears fan asked, any notable standouts you didn't expect to see before camp started? Any notable guys who are underperforming? So this is your fourth training camp now you've been to. Of course, I've been to a couple, and of course we check all the reports every day. The standouts, I think, the rookies, the entire class. I don't think I expect the entire rookie class to kind of have moments, and they've all flashed quite a bit. Terrell Smith has been running with the ones at points. He was getting some safety reps, so they really high on him. Travis Bell, like I just talked about him a second ago, he had a nice game against the Titans on Saturday. So I was not expecting the entire rookie class to kind of make their statement here early on.
Yeah, I mean, Terrell Smith was the first name that came to mind, and then Terrell Lewis.
Terrell Lewis, yeah.
Terrells, I guess.
The Terrells.
Because I didn't really know who he was, and so it surprised me when he kind of popped off. On the offensive side of the ball, I think some of the like guys that are really kind of fighting for practice squad spots at wide receiver, I think have played surprisingly well. Therese Fountain. Cruikshank looked pretty good in the practice we were at. I know he got cut,
And he
right?
gets cut, right?
So it's one of those things where like there was a little surprise, but he still wasn't good enough to hang. Therese Fountain, like I don't know what they see in Simba Webster, but he's kind of useful in special teams, and he seems to have had a decent camp. I've kind of written him off. There's a couple guys that I don't really have high opinions of that I don't think have had good camps. Treston Ebner being the guy that I've talked about before, and so I think that's notable because he was a draft pick last year, and I think that he might not make the roster, particularly with how many moves they made in the offseason to add to this running back room. 3 guys, right?
Yeah.
Two free agents and 1 in the draft, and so I think that's pretty notable. I think the Velas stuff is notable. It feels
Third round draft pick, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like maybe he makes the team as the 6th wide receiver, right? But there's a real chance that maybe they cut their losses and they just think that this guy's just not what they thought they were getting. So I think that's maybe somebody who's overall underperforming. He had a nice day yesterday, and obviously he was out today. So I don't want to cut him off the knees here, but that's a guy that kind of comes to mind. You can't really say Claypool. Claypool's hurt, and he was having a really great camp, right?
Yeah.
Even though he's been out because of injury, and all the guys that are out for injury, you could maybe, well, that's kind of disappointing. Well, okay, but let's just assume that they're real injuries and they're holding them out for precautionary reasons, and it's not going to be a big deal once we get to the regular season. Otherwise, underperforming, I don't have anybody else.
I'm going to talk one guy underperforming, which is kind of weird for me because this has been historically a Cole Kmet, pro Cole Kmet podcast. He hasn't really done a lot where he stood out, and I think part of that though is because DJ Moore, Chase Claypool are having such good camps. The rookie Tyler Scott has had some moments. So Cole Kmet hasn't done as much because last training camp he had a fantastic camp. And Bears fans thought, oh my God, he's going to take the next step, which he did. He took a nice step both as a receiver and a blocker. I think he's now at the point in his career now where he got the big paycheck. The Bears know who he is. They trust him. They trust the development. And I think Cole Kmet's going to keep being one of these guys that has, 50-ish catches. He'll be a threat in the red zone. His blocking will keep improving because he's still a fairly young player. But as far as underperforming, I think it's Kmet, but because of how many weapons this offense finally has.
Yeah, mentioning DJ Moore, I have a bet with our friend Brendan Shagru about over under DJ Moore touchdowns. And if DJ Moore gets 5 touchdowns, I win a bottle of whiskey from him. So
nice.
I'm already drinking the whiskey. That's how confident I am.
It's already in your hand. Okay.
That thing's already purchased and poured, in my opinion, because I think he is gonna be the dominant red zone, middle of the field. Like, I think he's just going to be the dominant guy in this offense. They're going to run it through him. So that may be at the expense of Cole Kmet, but that's okay. Run your offense through a guy like DJ Moore. Let the chips fall where they may after that.
Well, DJ Moore is not the traditional 6'5" people look at as your wide receiver 1, but he is a great route runner. And a lot of times down in the red zone, that's what it's about, is those rub routes, those picks you kind of come off, doing the right route where you fake in, you come out. They call them the whip routes. They're also called return routes. I love those routes down by the goal line. They're just, sometimes you can't guard those things.
Right.
And if you got a guy with such great footwork like DJ Moore, he's going to eat down there. Our guy here, Eric Bunau, made a good point here. Greg Gabriel he wrote an article a couple days ago. He did talk about how Robinson was setting the edge pretty good. He did. He had a decent game. I think he only played 9 or 10 snaps. We got to see more from him. Obviously, I hope he plays this week, because the upside there athletically is ridiculous. A former quarterback, former wide receiver. He has good bend. He has good length. He is the prototypical Coach Flu's defensive end from an athletic standpoint. Now let's see him put it together on the field.
Yeah, rode the bus from camp back with his family, his wife's parents, and his
they're
wife.
Fired up, right?
Yeah, they were excited. Yeah. It's fun.
And then we'll do one last question. We'll get out of here because I know it's kind of late. It's by you're on Eastern time. Has Getsy made the next step as offensive coordinator? Play creation, play calling, crafting on the offensive talents. It's kind of tough to see in this setting. But the fact that we're hearing a lot of good things out of Justin Fields, a lot of good things about the weapons. I think this is a case where the Jimmies and Joes are more important than the X's and O's. So Getsy is going to be better because his talent is better.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to Jordan Rodrigues' podcast series about the Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and those guys that are head coaches around the league that run the Shanahan system and all that. Well, Getsy's part of that. And Getsy's got his own background. He's got his own take on things. But one of the things you kind of figure out is these guys all kind of take this base and create sort of their own vision and version off of this. And so it's like a living organism that kind of takes on its own life, right? So the fun part about following a guy like Getsy is that he's going to continue to put his spin on things based on what the weaponry Justin Fields has around, and Justin Fields himself is a weapon. And so you definitely can't tell if he's taken the next step per se, because he hasn't had any more opportunities to call games. But I think you saw some really important things where he was willing to change the offense last year to cater to what Justin Fields could do to really help his team be competitive. And that was finding ways to run the football. There's a lot being said about, a yak merchant and all this, which I find unbelievable, right? Because the biggest yak merchants in the game last year were Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, who played in the freaking Super Bowl, right? So let's maybe understand what football is before you make a dumb comment like that. But he threw screens that went for touchdowns in the preseason game. When's the last time you saw the Bears run a screen that you didn't just give yourself a face palm by watching it, right? I mean, I can go back to the John Shoop offense and just how bad of a screen team this team always seems to be. And so if we're going to see good screens, we're going to see good decision making in the underneath routes. That's what was missing in a lot of this last year. We believe Justin Fields can make the deep throws. You just need more talent around in the offensive line to give him time, and downfield to be able to run underneath those accurate balls that he can throw. But if you can find ways to get chunk yardage or to move the sticks with underneath routes, this offense could really click early. So I think there's a chance. But we need live game action for him to be calling plays. And then historically, year 2 in a Shanahan system is the time when quarterbacks take off. Matt Ryan's the classic example. Bad in the Shanahan system in the first year, and it was Shanahan who was running it. And
Yeah.
the second year, he wins MVP. They're in the Super Bowl, right? There's a lot of quarterbacks that take a massive year 2 leap in the Shanahan system, and so we'll see if Justin Fields falls in that.
Yeah, I mean it's there for him. I mean he definitely has the pedigree. Like you said, he is more than just the Shanahan stuff. He obviously did that with LaFleur in Green Bay. He also worked with Mike McCarthy in Green Bay, and prior to that, when he was in college, he did a lot of stuff with Joe Moorhead's system, who is a legendary college coach. A lot of RPO stuff, a lot of running quarterback stuff, which is to me the big thing about Getsy is, like you said, how he flipped his philosophy kind of mid-season, and he decided, okay, we got to do this to kind of be competitive. I mean, that says a lot out of your OC that he's that self-aware to know he has to do this to get things going. There is no the media kind of needling him. Why don't you run the I formation? I don't do that. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, he does it and it works. And then it's the media told you so. We don't have to have that with Getsy because he's self-aware. He knows what's going on though. So, but that was it though. This is it. The last camp he did. So we're going to come back again. I think I am. We may have to do post game if you're around for post game again, but it's preseason. It's more like a practice game, so we can kind of do post game if you want.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll be back.
We'll play it by ear,
one way or the other.
Yeah,
Saturday
one way or the other. We'll be back. So
okay,
that's it.
Thanks
that's a wrap, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.